everybody. I just wanted to say a few brief words of welcome to everybody who's joining us and watching us have a little chat about our two classics programs today. I will introduce myself properly in a minute, but I wanted to first give our student volunteers who are joining us here today to talk about their experiences on our programs the chance to introduce themselves. Our plan for today is very much guided by you. If you have any questions that you want to fire at us, then we're delighted to have them. Otherwise, we've got some topics prepared that we're going to have a little chat about amongst ourselves. We'll talk about the differences between the two programs that we offer in Classics. So the MSc in Classics and Ancient History and the MSc in Ancient Cultures. And we'll dig into the kind of experience, what it's like to be a student on one of these programs with each of our panel members. So let's get to the most important thing. Let's introduce our panelists today. So Harriet is the first one on my screen. Harriet, do you want to talk a little briefly bit about yourself, where you've come from, what's brought you to Glasgow, and what your interests are, your academic interests are?
All right. Hi, I'm Harriet. I came to Glasgow from Edinburgh. That's where I grew up. I originally came to Glasgow to do my undergrad here, originally to do English, and I got to do Classics as my elective and preferred it. And I've been here ever since. It's been 5 years. They'll be lucky if I ever leave.
Great. Well, we're delighted to have you. You stay as long as you like. Tom, you're next on my screen.
Hello, everybody. My name is Tom. I'm originally from Germany, but I've lived in this country for almost 20 years, since I was 18. I left just after high school. I used to have a different career. I used to work in film and television, and I got quite disillusioned with that at some point, and I wanted to do something completely different, and I was looking for a brand new career. So I decided to go to university. So I did my undergrad at Glasgow in ancient history, which was a really wonderful experience. And I just couldn't get enough. So I thought I had to stay and do a master's, which was a really wonderful experience.
Great. Okay. Thank you, Tom. Shiv, you're next on my screen.
Hello, everyone. My name is Shivanshu Chatterjee, and I'm currently studying Classics and Ancient History. I'm originally from India, and I had always been planning to pursue my higher studies in the UK. So I chose Glasgow because of the specific modules which were being offered, as well as the different lecturers and their expertises, right? So I did an undergraduate in English literature, so I'd always been interested in literature and drama and all that. But I also wanted to do a bit of classics, a bit of Homer, and all that. So yeah, that's me.
Lovely. Okay, great. And Chelsea.
Hi, my name is Chelsea. I'm from Ohio in the States, and I used to be a teacher for 10 years of English literature, and I did my undergrad in English literature and education, fell in love with it, went full steam ahead, but there was always this kind of back of my mind. I had thought about pursuing classics, archaeology, so when it came time to leave teaching and find a different career, I decided to come to Glasgow for the Ancient Cultures MSc. I picked it because it had a lot of hands-on experience, and coming from a different career, that was a huge perk. So that's why I'm here.
Great. Thank you very much, everybody. So, and over to Lisa briefly, if you can introduce yourself.
Yes, hello, my name is Lisa Hau. I'm a lecturer here at the University of Glasgow in Classics. And I actually teach on both programs, both the Ancient Cultures program and the Classics and Ancient History program. But I'm here today to try to answer questions about the Classics and Ancient History program.
Lovely. Okay, thank you. And I'm doing the same for Ancient Cultures. So I am the program convener on Ancient Cultures and have been so for a few years, but I've taught on it since the beginning. And yeah, so we're delighted to get any questions that you have about each program, what the differences are between them. In a nutshell, I would say we've kind of covered the key difference that the Ancient Cultures is very much kind of hands-on. So we bring you into special collections to look at manuscripts, into the museum to handle objects. And we also kind of multicultural lens to our studies. So we expose you to all sorts of different strands of the ancient world. So yeah, right. Then let's jump into some of our discussion topics. So I wonder if I could ask each of our students to talk a little bit about how they've tailored their programs, because something that we offer with our MScs in classics, either classics in ancient history or ancient cultures, is this ability to look beyond the two core courses in ancient cultures, one core course in classics and ancient history, and choose optional courses. So what kind of optional courses have you done? How have you tailored your programs? So we'll start at the bottom this time. Chelsea?
So I'm particularly interested in material culture. And so aside from the core courses that we took for the Ancient Cultures program, which has a lot of material culture component, I took some classes in the archaeology department. So I took material culture and context, process of artifact studies, but then I also took material culture focused classes in classics. So I took the material world of Greek religious thought and practice, which was also a very obviously material culture focused course. And so I have been steeped in material culture just as I wanted to be.
Excellent, good stuff. Okay, and Shiv?
Yeah, so fun thing about me is that while I do enjoy the classics and history and literature and all that, I have also been really interested in science, and that's why I took two specific modules across my 2 semesters. One which was ancient technology in context, and the other which was ancient astronomy. So this is about studying the stars and constellations and how they influence the people and farmers in the ancient period, and technology. Massive applications everywhere, aqueducts and the development of concrete, lots of war machines, ballistas and siege machines and all that. So that's the stuff that I took. Yeah.
Wonderful. Okay, yeah, all of that is amazing, right? We've had a couple of questions submitted in advance, and one of them was about why the study of ancient cultures is still relevant. Why do we look to the past? And so much of it is shocking. We derive so many of our modern technologies from the past, right? Concrete is crazy. Okay, Tom, same question for you. How have you tailored your program?
Yes, I came into my master's with a very clear idea of what I wanted to do in my dissertation, which funnily has completely changed. And I was originally very interested in the attitudes towards suicide across different cultures in antiquity. So I had a meeting with Angela, which was very helpful, and we had a look at all the courses that were available to me and which ones were the most suitable. And so I took things like ancient medicine, for example. I took a self-directed study course where I just researched myself, and that was suicide in the Bible. I did an ancient Hebrew course as well, which helped me with my research. And overall, yeah, it was very helpful. But as I said, in the end, actually, the dissertation has completely changed. You never know. But I got a lot out of it anyway.
That's great. I think that's exactly what we want to encourage, that kind of flexibility, that you can come in with one idea, and if that blossoms and develops and that's where you stay, then wonderful. But if your interests change and you want to switch to other topics, then that's absolutely possible. Yeah, there's a big world to explore out there. Harriet.
Yeah, I don't know if I tailored mine to anything specific. I've always liked having variety and getting to do quite a lot of different things within one subject. So this year I've done courses on Roman religion, stargazing in the ancient world, and Athenian democracy, which have all been really interesting. The one thing I wanted to make sure, if possible, I could get to do this year was to write about Lucian's A True Story. And I finally did as part of the stargazing course, so I was thrilled. It's such a weird text, and I had a lot of fun researching and writing about it. So I've had a great time.
Good. Well, that's the main thing, I think, and we should say I think Lisa's prepared on this more than I am at the moment. We've got a wide variety of courses available each year, and it does change, right? So we talked about some of the courses that you guys have done this year. So for next year, Lisa, what are some of our highlights?
Yeah, so next year we have, again, a wide variety of courses. So we have courses on the histories of trans people. We have a course on Cleopatra. We have a course in Greek art. We have a brand new course on women and witches. We have a brand new course on women and power. We have lyric poems in ancient Greece and their performance. We have the invention of history. We have the Roman stage. We have love and war, which is Roman poetry. All sorts of different things. Oh, there's one on Greek religion as well.
Yeah.
Lots and lots of different courses.
So yeah, so each year the experience is slightly different, but what we've done this year, and partly it was inspired by Tom and what he was talking about, so the self-directed study course that he ended up taking when he was thinking that he wanted to support his dissertation plans with the topics that he was taking, will have within classics that ability to design your own course. So if there's a specific member of staff that you would like to work with, if there's a specific subject area that's not on offer in one of our kind of broadly taught courses, then you'll have the ability to kind of kickstart that yourself. So we're pretty proud of that. That will launch this year. And really, whether you want to dabble and take a little bit of everything, or whether you want to immerse yourself in particular areas and deepen your skills, we cater for both of those routes, really, and want you to be able to do those. So we've mentioned languages. Harriet, would you like to say something about you've taken, it's Latin, right, this year?
Yeah, so this year I was doing intermediate Latin or level 2 Latin, whatever you prefer to call it. I just wanted to talk about it because Glasgow offers quite a lot of different ancient languages. I think most of the people on this stream have also had a chance to do some as well. I've really enjoyed the Latin course this year. It is hard work, it is difficult, but it was really nice getting to go quite in depth into some Latin texts. So we were doing Ovid's Metamorphosis and the Aeneid and some Livy and some Velleius Paterculus. And yeah, I really enjoyed it. It was very sort of catered to whatever pace we were good to work at. So we were never going too quickly through a text and not being able to keep up, which I really appreciated because I'm not great at Latin. So that was really nice.
Yeah, I think that this is something that we've tried to do, particularly in the last few years. So we're always kind of having a look at our courses and how they're running and thinking of ways to improve them, to make them better. And we've done quite a lot of development on our languages this year, both with Greek and with Latin, to think about pacing and workload, which we can talk about more generally amongst ourselves. So, and Tom, you mentioned that you've done Hebrew, right?
Yeah, which I never thought I was ever going to do in my life, Hebrew. So that was quite... The really good thing about that too is that if you want to learn modern Hebrew, you've got the foundation. It's really helpful. You know the alphabet, there's so many similarities. I was doing a bit of modern Hebrew on Duolingo and I knew almost everything. So yeah, it was a really, I mean, I'm sort of beginning, you know, the beginner's course. But it was a good experience. So.
Yeah, I think your world kind of opens up a little bit if you can look at text in the original. I mean, there are excellent translations, and one of the questions that we were given in advance was, how do you approach an ancient text? How do you take it apart and analyze it? Lisa's the expert there, so I'll turn to her in a second. But I think learning a language just gives you that insight into you know, some of the difficulties that translators face when trying to put a text into another language, an ancient text into a modern language. If you can look at that in the original, then it's interesting. So, and I should put in a little word for hieroglyphs. Glasgow is one of the few places in the UK where you can study hieroglyphs. So we have both basic and intermediate levels now. So I'm very proud of that. But yeah, I was gonna throw that question to Lisa just for a second. So you do cool and interesting courses, kind of taking apart textual sources, right?
Yes, textual sources is what I do, or ancient texts. I mean, in a sense, how we analyze them is what those courses are all about. So it's difficult to give a 1-minute overview. But in a sense, it's the same thing you would do with any text. It's about close reading. It's about reading it carefully, see what it actually says, down to the level of every word and the way the sentences are put together. And of course, if you're doing that in a translation, you might need to compare a couple of different translations to get a sense of what the original says. Or if you've done a little bit of the original language, you might be able to compare that with a translation and get a sense of what the original says. And then it's about trying to make sense of what the author was trying to do. And I work particularly on texts of history, so historiography, the writing of history. So it's always about thinking about why the author presents the past in this particular way. Why has he chosen these particular events as important? Why does he think that these particular bits of information are interesting or necessary? So we do a lot of that in my courses, and similar things in some of the other courses focused on different texts.
Yeah. So yeah, the analysis of text is obviously a kind of key component of our programs, and indeed Ancient Cultures, the first semester is focused on approaching this multicultural world of the past through texts, and then we turn to material culture in the second semester. So Ancient Cultures students, I wondered if we could put you on the spot for a second and get you to talk a little bit about handling classes. So I know, Tom, you've found those quite a different experience, right? We start with you. What was your experience? You can do this, warts and all, your experience of handling classes in the museum.
I mean, initially it was, and this might sound a little bit silly, but it was almost an emotional experience because you're holding these artifacts in your hand that are thousands of years old. And the experience of looking at something in just a picture or a 3D model online and holding something in your hand, being able to, touch it and smell it and feel the weight of it is completely different. And I have to say, by far my favorite session that I did last year was actually with Lisa, who happens to be here just now, looking at all these gorgeous medieval manuscripts of classical texts, and the smell or stench of some of them, and the beautiful ink that was used, and the gold and the blues and stuff. It's just something that's completely unforgettable. And we had to do an assignment afterwards where we had to go into the archives and spend time with the manuscript just on our own. And that was really eye-opening because you can spend as much time with it as much as you wanted. And yeah, by far my favorite session last semester. Yeah.
Great. And
I just say I'm so glad to hear that. I love it too. They are really amazing manuscripts.
Yeah. I must go along to that session one day. It's on my list. I don't think I've ever seen these manuscripts for myself, so it's definitely on my list. Chelsea, I was going to ask you the same question. Any sort of things that stood out from handling experiences for you?
Yeah, I echo Tom's sentiments about it being really like an emotional experience. And I think that when you're looking at how form and function, it's invaluable to pick the thing up. When we're looking at different types of vessels that are holding liquids, you can kind of be like, okay, well, it's a vessel that holds a liquid. But when you hold it, you realize, like, obviously this held a valuable liquid. Here's why, et cetera, et cetera. And then also from a practical standpoint, you are learning how to handle objects. And since these courses, I've done some volunteer work in the Hunterian Museum here. And you kind of walk in, and I wouldn't say the assumption is that you know how to handle objects, but it's nice to walk in with confidence. You know where you should not pick an object up from and things like that. So aside from the really informative experience of handling the object, you also get the skill of handling the object.
That's great. Yeah, no, I have the same kind of experience. I think we're spoiled for choice, and I do swap out our handling sessions. So our lamps session this year was new. because we've got such a wide variety of things that we can look at. Coins, I think, have become a particular favorite, and I want to get you guys to talk about your experience with coins. I'm noticing we've got a question from a member of our audience. So thinking about whether to do ancient cultures or classics and ancient history, and wondering if any of our students were making the decision between those two courses. So I think, Tom, you were initially, you weren't quite decided which one to do, right?
That's correct, yeah. And I mean, I was very fortunate because when I was doing my undergrad, I was in 4th year. Angela had invited me to do a couple of sessions in the ancient cultures course to see whether I was interested in it. And then obviously I went along to the handling session and I was completely blown away by it. I thought I never want to do anything else. So yeah, it's pretty easily convinced. Yeah.
If I can jump in for a second and say something about the difference between the two programs. The main difference really, I think, is that classics and ancient history is focused exclusively on what we would call the Greco-Roman world, right? So it's Greece and Rome and the Greek-speaking and Latin-speaking areas around it in antiquity, whereas ancient cultures reaches more widely. I think you do Egypt and the ancient Middle East and the Celts and generally a bit wider culturally and geographically, and you have more of the handling sessions. I mean, it is possible to choose elective courses for classics and ancient history, which also have some handling sessions, but not to the same extent as ancient cultures. So classics and ancient history, in a sense, is a bit more traditional. If it is traditional classics that you're interested in, then that is probably the degree that you want to do. On the other hand, if you think you want to look a little bit wider, you want to dabble in some different cultures, and you want to spend more time in museums, looking at and handling objects, then probably ancient cultures is the way to go. But really, they have a lot of the same elective courses. So so there's a certain amount of overlap between them as well.
Yeah, and we do have. Oh, sorry, Tom, on you go. Yeah.
Yeah. I was just going to say, I always knew that I was most interested in the Romans, and in my future, I always wanted to further research the Romans. But I thought in order to understand them as a culture much better, I have to branch out and see what's happening at the same time elsewhere. And a really good example was when I did my course on suicide in the Bible. I don't have a religious background, so I didn't know the Bible very well. And there were so many patterns that I found there that I also found in Roman literature and vice versa. And I wasn't aware of these patterns in Roman literature before I saw them in the Bible. And that gave me this newfound awareness of things. It was very helpful. And that's just one example out of many.
That was also a lovely example of how you can use texts and close reading of texts to draw out really important observations, right? The fact that there are recurring patterns, not just within a text, but also between texts from the ancient world, even from different cultures within the ancient world.
Yeah. So what about Shiv and Harriet? Why did you decide on classics and ancient history? Oh, hi, yep.
Basically, simply for me, especially during my undergrad, I got to do quite a variety of things, and I discovered that I am not good with material culture. It's all right to admit your weaknesses. I look at a pot and I go, it's a pot. That's all I've got. My brain just doesn't work that way. I'm much better with written sources. So even though classics is a lot more focused on Greek and Roman stuff, because there's room to do a lot more literature and historical written sources, it just works better for my brain. I'm better at it. That's nice to have. You're getting a degree out of it after all. You want to do well. So there we go.
Absolutely.
Harriet, I'm the same.
Yeah.
As for me, I mean, okay. So, like, I have always been involved with literary texts and reading the things that I'm studying. So, I think it was quite an obvious choice for me that I would choose the classics. While, of course, I have done several of these handling sessions myself, and I've really enjoyed them, but still, like, my love is in the texts. So that's why I took the classics.
And I think that this is it, isn't it? It's whether you've got that kind of laser focus on classics, and you know that that's what you want to immerse yourself in. And really, with classics and ancient history, you're hitting the ground running with that. So you immediately start with the core course thinking about how to hone your skills and expose yourself to different approaches. Yeah. Whereas with ancient cultures, it's about dabbling, I suppose, and not necessarily going, okay, it's all about Greece and Rome. It's kind of exploring what else there is out there as well, and kind of having that broad perspective. And then in the end, inevitably, you end up narrowing down again. But it's two different paths. And I would say to anybody who's watching, the best thing to do if you're wondering about which program to take is reach out to either myself or our program convener for classics and ancient history is Adrastis Omasi, and we're delighted to answer questions and drill down with you. Think a little bit about your background, what you're bringing to the program, and how you might best develop your skills, which pathway to take. So we're very happy to give you advice on that. I should just jump in as well. I see that there's a question about Middle Egyptian and whether it's being taught this coming academic year. Yes, it is. So at the moment, I'm teaching Egyptian every year. So we sometimes swap out, but with languages, we tend to offer our beginners languages every year to give everybody the opportunity to pick something up. So if you'd like to do Middle Egyptian, lovely. Yes, it will be offered. So we were
Angela, there's a question about theories and concepts as well. Which theories and concepts are taught in the program. Now, I don't know which program that's relating to, but I can talk a little bit about classics and ancient history. So classics and ancient history has one core course, which is called Theories and Methods. And it is team taught by different members of staff. So what theories and methods are taught each year depends on the members of staff teaching it, right? So we each come in and offer one session on a particular theory or methodology that we use in our own work. So this year, for example, there's been a wide variety of theories and approaches covered. So there's been fairly traditional theories such as semiotics and structuralism, hermeneutics, but there's also been more recent theories such as acculturation, subaltern studies, the emotional or experiential turn, and there's been stuff about approaches to race in the ancient world, approaches to disability in the ancient world. So lots of different theories and methods. And of course, we're always open to students bringing in other theories and methods. If there's something that you've learned in your undergraduate, if there's a theory that you're familiar with that you have just come across and you're wanting to try out, then that's absolutely fine. We can definitely support lots of different approaches. It's only healthy to look at the texts and the material culture from as many different perspectives as possible.
Yeah, definitely. Absolutely. I wonder if we can get people's opinions on, so we talked about the approaches and the kinds of things that you do in classes. What about what we ask you to do in terms of assessments? So does anybody want to talk about the sort of assessments that you guys have done? What kinds of things have you done? So obviously, yep, Harriet's desperate to tell us. Yep, on you go, Harriet.
Yeah, something I really liked about the master's course here that's a bit different from the undergrad in classics is there aren't really exams for most of the elective courses. For languages, there are. That's kind of a separate thing. Instead, they're all assessed through essays, research projects, and the vast majority of them, you get to build your own question, often with help from the lecturer. So obviously, you're not picking something completely out of the blue. It has to obviously be relevant. But yeah, I've got to do a lot of different things this term that I've been really, really interested in and build it around specific things I wanted to look at. And I've had a really, really good time with it. So yeah, I really, really enjoyed that. I think my favorite one was actually for the core course for classics. We had to pick like a thing that we like and apply a theory or method to it. So I did a mashup of my three favorite things, which is narratology, food, and epic poetry, and talked about how feasting affects narrative time in epic poetry. And I think it's maybe the best thing I've written this year. So I had a great time. Yeah, I'll be quiet now.
Not at all, not at all. Does anybody, is anything spring to mind for anybody else? Oh, Jing's right. Okay, I think Chelsea just beat Shiv to the punch there, right? Chelsea first and then Shiv.
So Harriet's covered it really well in terms of like what the overall assessments are. In terms of like a unique assessment experience, where it was the 2 core classes in the Ancient Cultures program. We have to create portfolio pieces, and they're essentially really short writing pieces where the word count is admittedly quite challenging, but it's a really strong exercise in writing succinctly and conveying a lot in a little space, and kind of really cutting out many people's tendency to ramble until they find their point. And so I actually found those more challenging than writing like a 3,000 word essay. They were only like 400 words. I think I had a greater challenge with those. But a lot of those portfolio pieces informed or changed my final essay picks. A lot of my cohort members like final essay picks, dissertations, and so they were mighty, or small but mighty.
Good. Yeah, the word count is a definite challenge, but it is a skill that's worth developing, because if you're heading towards any kind of career where you're going to write labels, for example, in a museum, you don't have pages and pages. You've got to think about how to filter the key information. So I think it's an interesting counterpoise to a longer essay. Right, that's enough blethering from me. Shiv, you were going to say something.
Wanted to talk about like the freedom of choice. That's the biggest thing in this course. You get to choose whatever that you want to work on most of the time, right? And for me, one of those kind of golden opportunities was when I wanted to write a paper on the Antikythera mechanism, like the world's oldest computer, and I so loved it. You know, I got to kind of deconstruct every single dial on it and what it did, what it meant for the people, how they used it, all the physics involved in it. It was amazing, beautiful.
Tom, is there anything that you wanted to add?
Yeah, one thing I really enjoyed is that before I went to university, I used to travel quite a lot, and I went to a lot of museums all over the world and took so many pictures and never really knew very much about the things that I saw. But in this course, the amount of pictures I could bring in, things that I could study that I'd never had the chance, was just incredible. I was looking at things like the cistern in Constantinople, for example, that I visited years ago, and the Medusa heads in there, the hermaphrodite in the Louvre, things from Pompeii, from Ostia. It was just an incredible opportunity to research these things.
Good. And I'm glad that we've been talking about kind of freedom of choice and the kind of ability to design and have a hand in your assessments, and to kind of channel yourself towards where your interests lie, because that's definitely the kind of thing that we want to encourage. So I wonder if we can get you to talk a little bit each about where you are currently. So we're done with our teaching in Glasgow at the moment, and everybody's kind of focusing in on their dissertations at the moment. So can we go around and get you guys to talk about what you're researching currently, where your journey has currently led you? So Shiv, why don't we start with you?
Yeah, absolutely. Currently, I'm working on Aristophanes, so that's old comedy, specifically Lysistrata, Acharnians, and Peace, and basically why they are, like how rather they're reacting to the Peloponnesian War. And what I want to understand through my project is, like, what was the sentiment of the grassroots level people towards war? Like, was it something like a divide between the elite classes who are actually waging the wars, or it's like a shared belief among all the people? That's my current project, and I'm working under Professor Andrew Morrison, who is, by the way, an absolutely phenomenal professor. He loves the classics, and like you can understand that when you're talking to him. So yeah, that's what I'm doing right now.
Okay, that sounds great. I thought you were going to say something scientific with all these exciting science-based courses that that you've been doing. But I think this is part of it, that you build up this broad tapestry of interests, and then you decide what you're going to focus on. And war, of course, and people's experience of it and attitudes towards it, again, touches upon a question that we had earlier. Why do we keep studying the past in the present? Because it gives us this incredible mirror to reflect on what we're going through now, I guess. So, yeah. Right, randomly up to the top, Harriet.
Yeah, I'm actually also working with Andrew Morrison, who I love very much. He also supervised my undergrad, and he's agreed to supervise me again. Poor him. Anyway, I'm researching the Amazons, and I love them, and I still don't fully know where I'm going with it yet, but I'm having a great time. At the moment, I'm looking into the sort of geography of the Amazon myth. So the different homelands that the Amazons are supposed to have come from, and how sort of the ancient roots of those homelands have trickled down into the later versions of the myth, and also looking at a bit of myth theory, how myths develop, what is myth compared to history and everything else. And I'm really enjoying it.
Yeah, this is one of our big themes. I think this kind of meeting point of myth and history, right? Even from our level 1 courses, that this is what we want to get students excited about and discovering, definitely. So Tom, can we jump to you? You're doing a really cool topic. It's very cool.
I think so. I'm really interested in it, which helps. I'm working with Angela, and I'm also working with the second supervisor. That's Elizabeth Monyad, who is an art historian in the department, and I'm looking at caves. And I think what is interesting about caves is everybody knows what a cave looks like, what a cave feels like, but I'm interested in seeing how are they materialized in Roman literature and in Greco-Roman art. And yeah, it's going very well. It's a lot of hard work, but it's enjoyable. Yes.
Yeah, no, it's been really interesting to see how it's blossomed as a topic, and it's one of these wonderful topics that you touch upon where you suddenly go, hang on, not a lot of people have thought about this before, and you feel yourself on new ground, which is lovely, and that's always nice to do. Chelsea, last but not least.
So my dissertation is looking at Greek and ancient Egyptian religion. I'm really interested in the material culture of those two religious groups, especially because they have such well-known anthropomorphized pantheons. And so what I'm looking at are ritual and religious artifacts or iconography that are aniconic, or sort of somewhere in between aniconic and anthropomorphized, and just seeing what is the agency of those compared to a figurine that is fully human of a deity. So I confuse myself sometimes with my own topic, but it's going well overall.
I think, again, just that feeling of the unfamiliar and having to orient yourself, but all of you will be doing this to a certain extent, that you design yourself a question, and then you prepare an approach, and then you've got to see how it comes out in the wash and where things are going to take you at the end of the day. Religion reminds me that somebody had posted a question about whether we're going to have courses that focus on the religions of ancient Egypt or the ancient Near East next year. We don't have anything that specifically focuses on that, but obviously if you're interested in doing hieroglyphs, then religion comes up throughout that. So we're thinking about the texts that we read are very much about funerary culture and preparing for the afterlife, and so we touch upon religion quite a bit there. And there may well be courses in archaeology. A colleague of mine who I work with quite often, and we collaborate on courses, he does ancient Mesopotamia, and Claudia Glatz in archaeology as well. They offer courses that touch upon religion and particularly material culture and religion in the ancient Near East. So there's lots of things. So you keep your eye on our course catalogue, lots of things pop up. So I think we're gosh, almost towards the end of our time. I wanted to ask people about beyond study. So what things have you done beyond your courses? So whether it's societies or volunteering opportunities. So if we just go around everybody, I'll start randomly at the bottom this time. Chelsea, do you want to talk a little bit?
Yeah, so one of the primary things that I'm involved in outside of coursework is called the New Library of Alexandria. It was a group founded last year who really wanted a way to creatively engage with the classics. So they just all designed their own creative projects. There are some people who are doing like cross-stitching and crocheting, a lot of painting, creative writing, just different things like that. And so the group carried on this year with a new set of projects. And we actually tomorrow have our colloquium where we're going to be presenting our progress on those projects. So essentially we would meet once every 2 weeks and just talk about the progress we've made on our projects. Sometimes we would have like a time where we just all sat together and worked, and it's been really awesome. It's led to a really cool internship opportunity for me, where we're looking at how we can take all this really awesome content from the New Library of Alexandria and create sort of like a digital and physical engagement with those things. So that's one of the things that I did. I also worked as a numismatics volunteer. So I got to help catalog a bunch of ancient Greek coins. I believe we have a number of numismatic volunteers on the panel today, which is a really cool opportunity to work within the Hunterian. And then I also volunteer with Andy Mills in the Hunterian. He is the curator of the archaeology collection. And right now we are helping to repackage a collection that's going to be repatriated to Nigeria.
Wonderful. Okay, lots of things there. So moving along to Shiv.
Yeah, so exactly like Chelsea said, I was also part of the numismatics project, and it was one of the loveliest things that I've ever done in my life. So we get to handle actual ancient coins from Greece or Rome or Egypt, and we help in the digital cataloging of those coins, right? So we measure them and weight them and check for inscriptions on the coins, have all the equipment in the lab, right? And we're supervised by the head numismatist at the Hunterian Archives. So yeah, that was a really fun project. And, you know, as Tom was talking about earlier, it's an emotional experience, you know, holding a piece of history in your hands. So yeah, that was one of the things that I did. And the second thing was I was part of the Physics Society because I love science. So, yeah.
Cool. Yeah, we get people coming up in open days occasionally who talk to us about doing combinations of classics and physics. So it's not out there. This exists as a kind of a combined interest. So over to Tom.
I also took part in the numismatics collection there as a volunteer, and my issue was always that I had I got the impression that there was a lot of information to be extracted from coins, but I didn't have the skills to do that, and I thought I was really missing out. So I really used that opportunity to gain these skills. One thing I really appreciated was we always did 2 hours every Thursday. In the last about 20 minutes, we looked at different coins, and I'm clearly very passionate about the ancient world, but that doesn't mean I don't care about other parts of history. And we were looking at things like medieval coins, sometimes modern coins, and I learned so much about coins in general. Yeah, it was such a great opportunity. I wish I could do it again. Yeah.
Yeah, coins are amazing things, absolutely amazing things. Harriet.
So mine's a bit different. I have been taking part of the New Library of Alexandria project that Chelsea mentioned. But outside of that, the main thing that I do in classics is be part of societies. So there are 2 main classic societies at Glasgow. The oldest one is the Alexandrian Society. There's no one here from that today, but there's loads of information about them online. And then I'm part of Society for Women in Ancient Cultures, which I started last year with a few of my friends. To kind of just talk about women in the ancient world. And we have lots of crafts events, charity events, book events. We've had guest lectures as well. Angela's come along and given us one before. And it's really, really great. So if anyone fancies joining that and keeping it going when we're all gone, that would be great.
I think it's lovely to see these things live on. I think your society is doing wonderfully well. You always have really interesting topics on the go. We've had a few questions about sort of work-life balance and workload. I wonder if we can talk a little bit about that, and then our last questions will be about what you guys are wanting to do with all these skills that you developed and what you're thinking about next. So either if you want to talk about work-life balance or what comes next, again, we'll go around. We'll start with Tom this time.
Yeah, I would say it's a very demanding course. It's very intense, and it's just something to be aware of. It's financial, obviously, that can be quite challenging if you can't do a lot of work. On the outside, it's something to really be aware of, what you get yourself into. But I think this course really demands full attention. I did a little bit of work on the side I've always worked, but I had to keep that to a minimum, really. I think that's being realistic, yeah.
Yeah, and we do offer the opportunity to study part-time as well. If you feel that you want to work alongside studying, then that's something that you can definitely do. We jump along to Shiv.
Exactly like Tom said. Even though the contact times with the lecturers and the seminars is quite limited over the week, you can always expect to be occupied in your free time. You'll most probably be working on your essays, if not preparing for language assessments and all that. This carries on until April. After that, you have your dissertation writing period, so you'll definitely be busy at that time. Yeah.
Okay. Chelsea?
I would say, yeah, I agree that the course is quite demanding. There's a bit of an illusion because primarily you'll be doing readings with occasional papers, but it's never too early to start those papers, to start researching for them, to start drafting for them. Because there's only a few, they're pretty major papers, and you need to make sure that you are thinking about it. Like, I would go through several iterations of my idea before I actually started drafting the paper. And I learned pretty quickly that it's really never too early to start working on them.
Okay. And Harriet?
Yeah, I was working part-time for most of the first term, less so this term. And it's doable, it's difficult. I think it depends what classes you're taking and how much they require. I find that most of the time the week-to-week work isn't too bad, but doing level 2 Latin, having not done Latin for years, and then doing that on top of other work while working part-time, that was a lot. I don't recommend that. Don't do that. But otherwise, you'll probably be okay. It is doable. It's just difficult. Time management is a great skill. It will be okay. And other than that, what do I hope to go from it? I don't know. I would love to do a PhD one day, far, far in the future, not now. And in the meantime, I would like to go out and get a big girl job in a big girl world. I'd love to be a civil servant or something like that. Still kind of figuring that out. It's great thing that classics gives you so many different skills that all are very applicable to all kinds of different things. So that's why I'm still here.
Cool. Okay. And I know that Chelsea, you've got some plans for what comes next.
Yeah. So this program really helped me figure out what I wanted to do. Like I said, I'm going through a career change, and I just knew, like, generally ancient world archaeology, kind of what I was interested in. So because of this course, I've decided to stay and get a second master's in the museum studies program here, because I realized I would like to be a collections manager to start. And part of that realization came from our handling sessions and talking to the collections managers that were there. So that's my trajectory at the moment.
Excellent. And Tom, you've got plans for what comes next?
Yes, I do. I'm starting a PhD at Glasgow in October, which I'm very excited about.
Yeah, we had a question about that quick transition between doing your 1-year MSc and then thinking about whether you wanted to go on to do a PhD. So I think, if I can remember that far back, I think all of you maybe came to that orientation session that we had at the beginning of the year, right? Where we talked to you about yeah, if you want to plan for a PhD immediately after you finish your MSc, you have to hit the ground running. So you have to be thinking about it in the first semester. And there's lots of support for if you want to put together a proposal and apply for funding and whatnot. But yeah, it's a tight time frame. So I've had students in the past do their MSc, and then there's a year where they plan for the PhD, and then that following year they'll come back and start. But it is possible to go on and do one straight away if you want to. So Shiv, plans for what comes next? I didn't ask you that question.
It's all right. I mean, you know, before coming into the degree, like I thought that I was going to pursue a PhD after that. But right now, I think that the best decision for me is to get a job and start working, you know, for a while at least. But a PhD is definitely in my sights.
Yeah. And I think, you know, we've mentioned this word several times today, flexibility. Yeah. That you do have flexible routes into study when it suits you, when the time is right for you. And if that's one step following another, that's great. If you want to plan for some time, that's also absolutely fine. Lisa, is there anything that I haven't mentioned that that you would like to mention? Something that we haven't covered?
No, I think we've covered most things really. Obviously, if people have more questions, they're welcome to email us, and we can always answer them that way.
Yeah, I mentioned earlier, we're delighted to hear from you if you've got questions about what you might study, what your pathway might be like, anything specific or general, we're delighted to hear about. And then I think all that's left to do is just thank all of our panel members for being here today. You can see that we're very privileged to work with very bright, very enthusiastic, very passionate students who are a pleasure to be in our classes. It's lovely to see their skills and their interests develop as the year goes along. And yeah, we're very much looking forward to our colloquium tomorrow and seeing some of the creative projects and hearing people talk about their research. There is a link online if you would like to drop in to the colloquium. We'll be doing a kind of live stream of it during the day. And otherwise, you need to come to Glasgow and participate in your own version of it next year, I guess. Yeah. So thank you very much. Thank you for following us at home. And yeah, do get in touch if you have any other questions. I think that's us.